Good evening. My name is Vita Morgan. I am the Senior Director for Engagement, Diversity, and Opinion with the Courier-Journal. Thank you for joining us as we talk with some dynamic young activists who are on the front lines of the racial justice movement. Amid calls for justice for Breonna Taylor, who was killed in her own home a year ago by Louisville police, these young people are speaking up, rising up, and taking up the mantle of change. They have led marches, organized educational sessions, and called for new policies. First, I want to introduce my co-host this evening, Imani Smith. She is the author of Youth Rising, a special section on young activists featured on courierjournal.com and in the Courier-Journal last Sunday. Imani is a 19-year-old Centre College sophomore and president of the board of directors for the Youth Resistance Collective. She also helped advise Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher as a member of the city's youth implementation team and was part of the work group charged with recommending a civilian oversight process for the Louisville Metro Police Department. Welcome, Imani. We're so glad to have you here as a co-host. I'd also like to introduce our other panelists. We have Ashanti Scott, a 20-year-old, second-year political science major at the University of Louisville, who was just 15 when she spoke out against anti-natural hair policies at her high school and won her first policy change. Savion Briggs, who is 19 and the freshman class president at Kentucky State University. Savion was in 8th grade when he first felt called to be an activist. He's been speaking up since then, fighting against police brutality and leading marches last summer during Breonna Taylor protests. And Jada Hampton, who at 22 is president of the Kentucky State Conference of the NAACP Youth and College. The recent University of Kentucky graduate works to connect young activists with tools they need to create sustainable change. Another guest who was to be with us, Sean Ali Waddell, is not able to join us this evening. I want to thank all of you so much for being with us. I'm going to start with Imani, who will serve as our guest host. For those who are joining us, please put your questions in the chat and we will ask them as well. Imani, you are up.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, for being a part of this conversation. Before we really hop into the conversation with our guest panelists, I would like for all of us to observe a moment of silence for those who were killed in the shootings last night in Atlanta. Thank you. So even before I start asking the questions, I want to recite a mantra that is by Assata Shakur that is regularly said at many Black liberation activism circles here in Louisville and across the nation, that really just kind of brings everyone into the meeting, kind of shifts the focus, but that I think is also very timely, that a lot of people can get with right now. It says, "It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains." All right, well, let's get into the conversation. Thanks to each of you, Shanti, Savion, and Jada, for being here tonight. We all know how busy you all are. Starting with this first question, and it's really to all of you. Answer it as heartfelt as you feel fitting. What was the moment that made you realize that you wanted to be an activist, that you wanted to advocate for the things that you advocate for? Either one of you can start.
I'll go.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I think what made me get into activism was definitely, I feel like I was personally almost born into it. My mom is a state representative here in Louisville, and she's ran for office. And I think that was sort of like my bridge into activist work. And then when the Butler hair policy took off, that just kind of made me create my own lane and get into advocacy and policy work in Louisville. So I definitely think those family connections was how I started advocacy.
I would say what really got me started, it would be just my upbringing and just the environment I lived in. I grew up around a lot of people that wasn't so outspoken about the problems that's going on in these systems, not that's also going on in the school systems as well. So when I finally got the chance, and when the things was happening to me, and I finally got the chance to be the friend or be the guy that to speak up and to voice the opinion of the voiceless, that's really where I got started at, and that was around in middle school. That's when it really happened, and with the killings, Trayvon Martin, it really sparked that activism in me, because at that young age, I didn't understand that my skin color was looked at as a weapon. So that's really kind of what gave me that just waking up into my calling.
For me, I would definitely say, originally being from Chicago, I remember an incident happening back in high school with Laquan McDonald. And that is what triggered me to get into this work. But then when I also stepped on a college campus, I saw so many things that needed to be changed. And I decided to join the organization that I'm a part of now, just so that our voices can be heard as a collective.
Wonderful. So the next question is for Ashanti, but any of you, if you want to answer it, can. Ashanti, like you said, you had your first policy win at 15 at Butler, right? What has kept you going with your activism for now 5 years? What has kept you going? What has really fed you? What sustains that hope, really?
Yeah, I think definitely the whole Butler hair policy, it really was very impressionable on me. At the time, I was a sophomore in high school. I was a cheerleader, and I was also coming into my own, gaining my own confidence. And when I read that policy, I mean, it really hurt me to know that grown adults sat around and decided that my hair is not something that is professional, is not something that society would ever accept or love or embrace. And so knowing that our advocacy and the way we mobilize the community to get that policy change within days, and knowing that students after me wouldn't have to go through what I went through, and they could see that their natural hair is loved, their natural hair is seen as professional, things like that are what keeps me going. It's knowing that, no one will ever have to go through what I had to go through. And I think now with the Breonna Taylor movement and advocacy for policy change for a ban on no-knock warrants, to make sure that we never have a Breonna Taylor happen again, and then getting policy change for gentrification, Louisville, et cetera, to make sure Black people are economically taken care of. I think that's what motivates me to keep going, to stay in the streets, and to keep advocating for good policy.
Does anyone else want to answer that question? What has kept you going with your activism, with your advocacy?
First, I want to say to Ashanti, I went to Butler High School as well, and once she done that, it kind of sparked a new light of revolutionaries at Butler High School. We ended up getting our BSU and everything going, so it was really amazing how what she did really affected everyone that came after her too. Because I think I was incoming freshman at the time, or I will be going there the next year. But I just remember how everyone was talking about it in school, and it just had it seeing a student being able to make that change in high school was real amazing and had a great impact um, on all of us that went to Butler. So just, kudos to you every time. Just thank you for what you've done. But also what keeps me going, I guess it will be my family, my little brothers and little sisters, to know that I want them to grow up and live a different life and not go through the things that I went through. And so if I'm able to change that in any way, that keeps me going every day, because, if I'm able to do it, why not do it? If not me, then who,
Okay, so the next question is for you, Savion. So the protests that have been taking place over the past year, they've been such a visible part of the change that's really happening in Louisville. It's been the spark of so many conversations here. What is the work of organizing like behind the scenes? What has been your experience? What is something that folks really don't see that really kind of supports everything behind the protests?
So me and my RE Next group, so a lot of people don't know, we put together that protest in probably about 72 hours. Straight connections, straight phone calls, a lot of not sleeping a lot also too, because it's like when you're inside of the movement, it's like you have that fire inside of you where you just want to keep going. And a lot of people didn't know that we was meeting up every day. We'd get breakfast, and then we also work hands on. Everyone's doing something else, to making the flyer, to phone calls. We're stepping out. I feel like a lot of people don't understand how much time goes into it, but also how we have to keep each other going. Like we was saging every day to kind of keep our good energy. We was making sure that we was holding each other accountable for the things that was going on too, because we found ourselves getting overwhelmed a lot of times too, as we started to continue to organize. But we felt like that it was needed. It was what we needed to do. But I would say, just to the people that's like the future organizers and the people that will want to be a part of the organizing scene, I feel like you should pace yourself. If I can go back and change what I've done, I will pace myself just a tad bit more. Just understand that you can't sleep, because if you're not doing good, you're not good for yourself, or you're not doing good, no one else, you're not no good to anyone else. So just with the organizing, so it's very time consuming, but also it's like a job. It's like once you take on this position, it's a job, and you're clocking in and clocking out every day. Only time you're clocking out is when it's time for sleep.
So another part of being an organizer, of being an activist, and I've said in other panels that really being a part of this work is really getting at the root of wanting this freedom for yourself, putting it in your soul to really, own this work. This question is more for Jada, but I really would like to hear from all three of you. What has been the emotional toll of doing this work? How has it affected you all? Yeah.
I would definitely say tapping into my voice as a young Black woman. That has been the most emotional toll on me thus far. I remember when I would prepare for panels or going out to speak or anything, just taking that moment to reflect and think back on where I was and before I got to this point in my life, and then how I should keep pushing forward for youth to come after me, making sure that the baton is being passed and that the work is being done essentially. And then also knowing that there are laws in Kentucky that do not protect me and do not protect young Black women and young Black males as well. So that was definitely a key factor.
Savion, Ashanti?
I think the emotional toll for me is it's a lot of trauma that goes into this work and activism. For me, our arrest was a very traumatic event. And then losing Travis and losing Chris Smith, I mean, and activists all over. Like my mom went to Ferguson, and there were similar activist deaths in Ferguson. So I think that that loss of life is very traumatic, and it's something that takes a toll on all of the activist community and people outside of the activist community. And it's something, you know, that's hard, and we have to find unique ways to come together and embrace and love on each other to make sure that with all this trauma that we're getting as we fight white supremacy and fight these systems, we're, you know, promoting love and promoting community. So yeah.
Yeah, also I would say that as well, because like the activist community, we're really a big family within itself. Like everyone loves each other. It was just like you hold each other accountable. So just even with having like a loss of a family member, the same way I felt with Travis, because it's someone that you see every day or someone that you talk to, laugh with, and then so for that to be gone, it's a lot of pain within the work too. It's a lot of tears. You know, you just got to make sure yourself and then everyone around you is okay too. Because if you get too carried away in the activist scene without checking on yourself, you'll find yourself, you can even fall into a depression. You'll feel like you're not accomplishing anything because a lot of the change that we're fighting for, we might not be able to see. A lot of things, the policies that we're trying to get passed, some things we might not be able to see, but we just have to know that long as we continue to put in the work, that someone will see it, maybe the generation that come after us.
So as a next question, and I'm sorry if you hear my dog kind of pitter-pattering in the back. That's my life during quarantine. So going off of that, because the conversation that I really wanted to have sparked from the features in the Courier Journal was that youth do not only lead the future, but they lead the now. I think I even said that to each of you when we had our initial interviews, right? That in Louisville, there really needs to be a conversation about where youth belong, how youth are listened to for the work that we do, because our experiences are valid. They belong to this movement. My question is, do you think that you are listened to as being young and Black and in the work? Do you think that you are listened to here in Louisville?
I think for me personally, like seeing how involved the youth are and are becoming in Louisville, like with the Sunrise movement here in Louisville, with March for Our Lives in Louisville, with Black Lives Matter Louisville, and the way youth are showing up for that, Women's March in Louisville and throughout Kentucky and Lexington. I think that the youth here in Louisville are making their voices heard, and they're making it very clear that regardless of if the people in power want to listen to us, you are going to listen to us. And if you think you're not, we'll be at your doorstep, we'll be on your Metro Hall steps, we'll be on your mayor's office steps, and we'll force you to hear us. So I think that that's what the youth in Louisville are saying. You're going to have to hear our voice. And I think that there are adults who are promoting the youth voice here in Louisville. I think of activists at Injustice Square like Miss Shamika, who would always say to media who wanted to interview her, I want you to talk to a youth voice, like talk to Ashanti, talk to Carmen, talk to Travis when he was with us. So I think that the adult activist community in Louisville are working with the youth community to make sure all of our voices are lifted up and all of us are heard in this fight.
I'll definitely agree with Ashanti on that one.
Yeah, I would agree too. Just like, because just even with being in Louisville during this period, this movement, you notice that behind a lot of these things that's going on, it is youth. It's youth coming together to organize these protests and organize these movements. And when we realize that, we realize how important the youth is right now. We understand, and I feel like we're at a point where we're coming to a realization where the youth is realizing that we're very powerful. we're the voice. We have the longevity in the movement right now. We're going to last a long time. So why not start um, being able to creating the spark and the change now, because we can plant the seeds for other young ones. And then also during the movement, other young people listen to young people. You'll listen to someone that's the same age as you, around the same age as you, because they're relatable. And that's why I feel like that's a very important part of this movement too, where a lot of us, when we're speaking or just marching or anything, we have like a relatable face, like, okay, he's 19 or she's 19, I can do the same thing. It also empowers each other at the same time too. So it's with the youth leading the movement, the movement will last a long time, but also with youth also inspiring other youth to continue.
So the second part to, and going off of that, what does youth leadership in Louisville look like? And it can just be just in Louisville, it can be across Kentucky. What does it look like to you? What does prioritizing youth voice look like to each one of you?
I take that. I think it looks like to me, it's like it's one of those clear cut things where you can just see the youth having the megaphones. We should have everyone, the youth leading every protest, the youth leading every movement, every conversation, because these are the things that we're seeing now. And of course, we need our elders to give us guidance and assistance, but also let us be the legs, like also with a little bit of the brain too, but just giving us the guidance that we need to get to that next level, but just giving us the space to have the conversation, giving us the space to continue doing what we're doing, giving us the resources. Because the thing is, with being young, we might not have all the resources that our elders might have. So giving us the resources and connecting us to the people that we need to talk to get these bills passed or march to happen. That's just supporting us, having a great support system for us. Well,
Yeah, I agree. And I think that listening to the youth means showing up for the youth and what youth activists organize and what they do. I know for me, being a U of L student, seeing on campus things like Black Student Union, Latinx Student Union, and seeing the events they put on, we need our elected officials and we need our adult leaders in the city to come where the youth are putting on things, are having conversations, are having panel discussions, and listen to their voices and what their needs are and how they want you to meet those needs. So I think that that's what we need to see moving forward to help uplift the youth voice.
Definitely. And I feel like more so now, there's being more investment into the youth. There's amplifying our voices and making sure that we're being heard, creating opportunities for us in spaces that we never thought a youth can even be in, and stuff like that. Is definitely a change that we're seeing now.
So, Jada, this question is more so for you. So you're the president of the Kentucky State Convention for the NAACP Youth in College, right? Tell me, what is that position like, and why is it important to connect communities across the state? And how are you getting young folks involved in your work?
Yes, definitely. So my position basically entails overseeing all of the youth councils and college chapters here in Kentucky under the NAACP, ensuring that they're equipped with resources, trainings, any materials that they may need to run a proper unit, making sure that leadership is in place, and that elections are being held. But most importantly, making sure that their voices are being heard on a national level as well. And that's why I feel like it's important that we connect our communities across state to ensure that our voices are being heard and that we amplify policies that we need changed. and not just in one county, but across Kentucky. There's an issue on every campus and in every community. And so when we have those youth leaders out there working towards bettering that, and so that's one way that we get them involved. We create opportunities, whether that's on a local level or a national level, for them to showcase their ideas. If there's an event that they want to host, we'll let them, we'll sit down, we'll listen to them, plan out the event for them to have. And then we also, well, I personally invest in their memberships just to get them running, to show that they are appreciated and that the work that they're doing does matter and will make a difference.
So we've mentioned Travis Nagdy. If you all saw in his feature, in my interview with him, he had just come back from, going across the Commonwealth, and he talked about how he hoped to do the work of connecting communities across the Commonwealth to each other to really get and drive the social movement to be around the state. Savion and Ashanti and Jada, if you want to hop in on this question as well, to you all, what is the importance of connecting these communities across Louisville, outside of Louisville, to this narrative, to pushing for progress? What's at the root of that? Why is that important?
Yeah, definitely. What I loved about Travis was his ability to connect people. He had Keep Growing group chat where he just had a bunch of youth, ages 18 to 24, and he just brought us all together and wanted us to collaborate on different things about how we could make change throughout Louisville, Lexington, all of that. And, I really loved him for it. But it's so important that we connect communities. Like Charles Booker says, from the hood to the holler. There's so many issues, like Jada said, in so many places that need to be solved. And so when we work together, we can collaborate and use our voices to get changes in all parts of government. And so I think it's so important that we do make those connections and we do utilize our connections to make our voices more loud, make our voices more powerful, and create a real presence to allow for a lot of change to happen.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just even with the connection, we're stronger together. We're stronger. It's power in unity. It's power in numbers. So the more people we have, the more noise we can make. The larger the demonstration can be, the larger the occupation can be. So just even when I was talking to Travis as well, he always used to ask me how was school. He'd be like, how's school? Because I'm just now starting, and I tell him about Kentucky State. He was like, how's school? And I just always said that, like, I want to organize up here because we got so many students up here. That can just, we'll be dangerous. Like, we are here by the Capitol. Just imagine with just a snap of fingers that we can just march thousands of students up there just real quick. Like, they will watch what they're passing. They will watch what they're saying. They will watch what they're doing because of our ability to organize. So the more people we have and the more things that we can do to stay connected with our people. So we have Ashanti, for example, over there at U of L. So say we all do the same thing at the same time, like, and they can't control that because they can't. We're doing what we want, and they're not in the middle of it to kind of stop it or try to set up a roadblock before the day we do it because they see the flyer. It's just the element of surprise is what's so dangerous with when we start coming together and we start working together. But yeah, just coming together is power in numbers, power in unity. So as we keep pushing and we keep going, us together, we're stronger.
So I'm going to take some questions that are rolling in, kind of going off what you said, Savion, about how many youth there are that can be connected, that can be used, that can be a part of this work, right? One question says, what role do you think white youth, our white peers, can play in supporting the movement? Anyone can answer that. No one has to be called on.
I would simply say by showing up. Um, that's one way that you can support us in the movement is by showing up, um, and being there and being able to listen to us and our concerns, and then being able to follow through whenever given a task or something simple as such. That's what I'll have to say for that one.
Okay. Next question. What are some ways that average everyday adults who maybe don't work with youth regularly can support young folks in how they amplify their voices? So even though the work that everyone here does is autonomous and is a product of our own agency, how can everyday adults that aren't really a part of the work that we do, how can they support us?
I think a good way is through social media. For me, like that's something that a lot of people underestimate. It's the power of social media. So definitely following all of us on this panel, because I know we probably share tons of flyers and events and look at the legislative session with these bills, these horrible bills that they're trying to pass in Frankfurt to silence voices. We have like flyers talking about how you can contact legislators, how you can send emails, send texts and phone calls. And that's what we really need folks to do. So I think following youth activists and just paying attention to their social media and what they're posting and sharing that, it helps visibility and it helps people see what's going on. And it helps educate folks, which is what we need very badly in this work. So, yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything she said. Just supporting us, following us, and making sure just being there to help when we post things or need spread things last minute.
So another question from the audience is, would you say that the last year with everything that has just been the last 365 days of, dealing with the Breonna Taylor case, of organizing and going to protests, to marches, to even the Capitol insurrection, to having highs as models like Amanda Gorman at the inauguration, to having lows like last night, has what your work has done and the progress that you may have seen being made, does that give you hope for the future, that actual systematic change can be made? Or have you been more discouraged by what you've seen? And anyone can answer. No one has to be called on.
Man, that's a question because a lot of things that we see in the movement, it can be discouraging. Everything don't go as planned, everything don't go as you expect it to go. But also, it's also some good within the movement, some hope also within the movement as well. And I think you find yourself, it's how you look at it. It's a lot about perception, because we think about our history. It's a lot of things that we could have looked at in that time period and we could have lost hope. We might not get to where we think we're going to get to. We might not accomplish everything that we think we're going to accomplish, but we will accomplish something. And I think that's like for me, myself, I look at it as if I can save, if I can impact one person per day, I can spark another revolutionary. Tomorrow is promised for another revolutionary to come and create change. And that's how I look at it. That's why I feel like how important the youth is. And just even over the protest this summer, I'm always talking to Keyshawn, like he's a young revolutionary that's in the movement that I see out there. So I have hope when I look at the youth inside of the movement. I have hope when I see them I see them doing the same things that we're doing at the ages of 12, 13, 14. That's my hope. But so that's what kind of keeps me going within that aspect and give me hope for the future.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I don't really get discouraged in this work. I like to think of, Travis when he said, keep going, like all hands on deck. Like that's the attitude we have to keep, and that positivity, because that's what these systems of oppression are meant to do. They're designed to beat you down, to make you discouraged, to make you feel like there's no hope, to make you feel like, you're the minority in the situation. But we have to keep going. We have to put all hands on deck, and we have to keep fighting for the things that we need, because it's our survival.
Jada, will you like to answer?
Oh yes, definitely. I would definitely say I've often caught myself getting discouraged when I felt like I had too much on one plate. But the youth inspired me to keep going. The youth, especially that I work with closely, because they're always eager to go and out and plan more, plan more, plan more. And even when I have my doubts, they always come in and just say like, "Hey, we got this. We could show up. We could show out." And we'll worry about numbers later. And so I think that is something that's been inspiring and keeping me going for sure.
There's one more question, and then I'll bring Vida on for you all to be able to give your call to action. So the question is, what do you think makes younger activists and leaders different from older generations? What's kind of the difference there? But then also, what is the kind of continuing aspect? So Savion was there in one of our meetings with the Youth Resistance Collective, in which we talk about our values a lot, right? And one of the things that I said to them was that I want this work to be, because we love Louisville, we love our Louisville community so much, that we let that love and that heritage of progress move us forward. So one, what is the difference between younger activists and leaders today? But then what's the continuing parts of our work from older generations?
I'll say just one thing. Like one thing that I see about our generation is like we have like no filter. We're gonna give it our all, and we don't care what anyone thinks. Like we really not asking, or we don't need anyone's acceptance. We know our rights. We know what our rights should be, and we know we can take them if we want to. And I think with our generation, that's what makes us so powerful, because we're not gonna say, like, as we're coming onto this time period, we know slavery happened. We do, and we know like how the civil rights movement went, and we learn so much from the history of our ancestors and what they've done and what they did, and we're not taking it anymore. Like the time is now, either get with it or get left, and that's how we feel about the whole thing of a lot of the change that we want to see, a lot of the change that we want to make. They better watch out for our generation, because you're not going to be able to do everything that y'all did back in the day. And with the assistance of the people, our elders, a lot of things that y'all think that y'all could pull 30 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago is not going to happen tomorrow, the next week, or the week after that, because we're not letting it happen.
I would definitely agree with Savon on that. We're not afraid to challenge anyone, whether you're in a position of power, whatever title you think you may hold. Definitely, I remember the one encounter where we were getting arrested with Louisville 87, and as each one of us was getting up to get arrested, we were still chanting and shouting, letting it be known that our voices are heard. But I will say what we have in common with our ancestors and other figures of the movement is our desire to keep pushing forward. Continue to lift and lead, making sure that the baton is getting passed and that the movement never dies, because it never will.
I think a difference, I don't think there's big differences between like youth and elder. I think we're both after the same fight, Black liberation. I think that the youth style of activism is definitely changing and evolving, and we have new ways of advocacy work, of doing things, especially in the age of COVID, like virtually, social media, like flyers and graphics and animations that get people engaged and get people interacting and allows you to reach like a different demographic and reach new people. So I think that that's kind of the difference between youth activism now and then older generations activism.
All right. Well, I'm going to bring Veda Morgan back on, and she's going to ask one more question, maybe even a call to action, and wrap us up. Thank you all.
Thank you, Amani. I may ask more than one question. I'm pretty inspired listening to your conversation. You're talking about your boldness and your power, and I just want to know, like, where does that boldness come from that you all exhibit? Can you talk about that? Start maybe with Savion. Where's that boldness that you have? Where's that coming from?
I would just have to give most of the credit to my ancestors. I don't know what they've done. I don't know. But I feel them through me 100%. When I wake up, I just have these thoughts, and I like all credit is going to them because I know they see me and they see the position that I'm in. They put me in the position to make these change, to fight, continue, let their voices live in. So most credit goes to them, and then also God, who protects me every night that we went out there to protest, that protects me still while I'm down here at Kentucky State and trying to make my voices be heard, because it's being here in Frankfurt. You find that they're very racist outside of when you leave campus. They pick with you especially when you're outspoken. They want you to be quiet from even going out to eat anywhere you go, and it's just being able to keep that revolutionary front on you at all times. You're a revolutionary when you wake up. You're a revolutionary when you go to sleep. And so it's just that motivation from my ancestors and, of course, God and my family and my support system to keep my fire going during my lowest days.
I get my boldness probably from like the Black women in my life, because they are unapologetically bold and loud. And I mean, I love it. And I think that Black women in history, like Assata Shakur, who said, you know, we have nothing to lose but our chains, like that resonates with me. From Shirley Chisholm, who said, if you don't get a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. I mean, to Shamika Parrish Wright, who says, you know, we don't move in fear. Like, I think all those Black women, my mom, in my life, like, they teach me to just show up unapologetically, be bold, be loud, be fearless, be courageous, all of that.
All right. Jada.
For me, I'm very shy. So when my boldness pops out, I give it all to God, because I never understand how I can do it and how I can form the words to come out or anything like that. So I definitely give it all to God. But also the young women that are in the movement. It surprises me. They're young as 5 years old, maybe younger than that sometimes, and they're using their voice. And so I take that and I lead by example, and I try to use my voice as often as I can.
All right. And Monty, I'm not leaving you out of this. Tell me about because you are bold and you are strong. Where does it come from for you?
Well, I think a lot of what has already been said about, you know, having folks that have come before me and who are around me that can kind of do the same things. For me, and I mentioned it in the intro to the features, that my connection to community really came from my father, Pastor Gregory Smith. And even though he passed back in December, a lot of my grieving process has been rediscovering my dad and really remembering all the stories of when he was young and when he had a voice here in Louisville and had a community that was engaged and that supported and encouraged him to use it. And didn't hold back in supporting and encouraging his children to use their voices. My sister was a minister, and when I started to organize and do more, whether it was with policy or in the streets last year, he was excited. He talked about it, texted a lot of family members, but I truly do think that it's because of a long heritage in my family, of being able to see folks that I come from be a part of this work and care, that it was almost inevitable that I do the same thing. So yeah.
Carrying the torch there, carrying in his footsteps. That's awesome. It's been a long struggle. I mean, you all know the history and how long the fight has been going. Is your generation the one that's gonna bring this home? Jada, start with you.
I feel like our generation is going to be the one that gets us a step closer. Definitely. We must break down policy first, understand it, then go in and try to change it. And then by the time the next generation is ready, they're taking off. So definitely.
Ashanti?
Yeah, I mean, I think my generation is definitely demanding some radical change. They're out in the streets, they're making their voice heard. So I'm excited for whatever we do. And I know whatever we do is going to be phenomenal and it's going to be life-changing for everyone.
Yeah, our generation's dangerous. Y'all don't want to mess with us. We're not playing no games with anyone. We're going to demand justice, and we're going to get it. And I just want to put this on the record. If we're this dangerous, imagine what comes after us.
I have a 19-year-old son, so I'm loving this. I hear this a lot, and it's beautiful. I also want to know kind of what does it look like? How do you know when you've succeeded? What does success look like, Imani?
Ooh, that's a heavy question because I think that what a lot of historical figures have said that, freedom having to be one in every generation is true. I think that we won't really ever get to the point in which we are living in a perfect society. There will always be something to fight and advocate for. But I think that a lot of the success, a lot of the hope that we have been able to see in the past year, just here in Kentucky, has been from youth having the agency to use their voice and to connect with each other, to encourage each other in the work. I think that's the highest form of success, and of pressuring powers that be to listen to us and to enact that change. I think that's where success lies. And I also think that success lies in our generation's ability to be able to keep that fire and to continue on with it. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Jada. I'm gonna keep messing with you, Jada, because you're kind of shy.
I would definitely agree with Imani on that point, because when I try not to cap our success, and that's with all leaders, because I feel like in our own special way we have reached some form of success, and whether it's in our progress of the movement. And I would say the most successful thing that we have done thus far is all getting our voices heard, all being amplified to a point where we have a platform to be able to speak on things like this now. And then we also have opportunities where we could continue to put other people up, put other youth leaders up on a stepping stool as well. So I would say that.
Thank you. Ashanti, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think that question just made me think of the quote by Malcolm X about if you stick a knife in my back and you pull it out, that's no progress. And if you pull it out and, it's still no progress, the progress happens when you start to heal the wound. So I think success for me is that healing process. We see that the system has oppressed Black people, brown people, women, LGBTQ plus people for centuries, for decades, for over 400 years. And so success to me looks like healing those wounds that white supremacy has inflicted upon us. And yeah, I think that we still have a lot to do to get there.
Thank you for that. Savion?
I'm honestly say these great Black women have put it in great words. They pretty much touched the bases on everything, how I feel. Shout out to the queen.
Shouts to the queen. There's one other question in the chat, and it's just about voting rights and registration and whether or not you all are organizing to prevent restrictions to voting rights. Any of you doing that kind of work?
For me, I know that I'll be doing some voting registration and working with some folks for voter registration drives, and also with some candidates that are about to come up in Louisville soon. So, for the audience, if you want to follow me, I'll definitely be posting flyers about that. And then I do believe there are expansions for voting rights legislation happening in Frankfurt right now. So if you know your state representative, shameless plug, State Representative Atticus Scott's always posting about it. So if you want to follow those individuals and see what's going on in Frankfurt to help expand voting rights in Kentucky, especially, with this new absentee and mail-in voting style we have because of the pandemic, we want to make sure we continue that process and make sure voting happens easily. And then with the restoration of voting rights, making sure everyone has the ability and the education to know how they get registered and how they vote on election day.
Thank you for that. And then I would be remiss if I did not ask each of you what your future plans are. I think our audience probably wants to know what you all are thinking, because I'm telling you right now, I can't imagine the greatness in this conversation right now. And so I'm just curious about what you're thinking for the future. Imani, I'll start with you.
Of course. The true honest question is I don't know, because I never saw myself, and Ashanti can attest to this, when we were at Girls Nation, the summer after our junior year, there was no way that I thought that I was going to be, organizing a youth activism nonprofit a few years ahead. There was no way. But I think that one of the things, and I got this actually from Michelle Obama's book, Becoming, is that is to appreciate, where I am right now in life, but then still enrich myself, still enrich wherever God decides to take me, because this is only for a season, as church folks would say. This is only for a season. Who knows where I will be 15 years down the road, if I even make it that long. So I think that for me, it's just taking in every moment, taking in every day, and doing the best with it that I can.
Living in the moment. That's good. That's something you already know that at this age is wonderful. Jada, how about you?
So I am currently in my gap year and I am studying for my LSAT. The goal is to go to law school in the future. So prayers up for me, because this is not easy. On top of trying to organize and listen to a bunch of college chapters yell at me all day. So definitely.
The movement will need you as a lawyer. That's awesome. How about you, Ashanti?
For me, I am, a political science student, and also what happened this summer in Louisville definitely angered me to activism. So I will be recruiting folks to run for office, and hopefully working on a lot of campaigns. So that's what I'll be doing, trying to get these, corrupt and bad politicians out of office so we can get more transparency, more accountability in our government system. And so we can get policy change and quick, fast, non-incremental policy change. So I'm gonna be putting all my energy and efforts into some future campaigns coming up.
All right. Looking forward to that, to seeing you on the ballot. Savion.
Yes, I would have to agree with Ashanti on that one. I'm gonna get into the political side of things too, but also being able to be the source in my community for the kids that don't go to college. They want to make it out through the things that they want to do. If they want to, like I said to Monty, if they want to open up their barbershop, a skate park, or just anything that they want to do, I'm being a source for them, to helping them, giving them their land, like actually starting up a family, like that family community back in Louisville, just as far as, but also us creating that generational wealth at the same time too. So that's what I'm going to work on.
Thank you. That's awesome. And thank you to each of you. Amani, thank you for being our guest host as well. And thank each of you for sharing. Thank you for your candor, your insight, and definitely your dedication to the cause of racial justice. It's just impressive to see that. And I just want to thank everyone who joined us too. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate it. We appreciate you. And good evening. Good night.